You're so stupid!
Hello, and welcome to Government is Fucking Stupid. Now, one thing nearly every government finds it necessary to do is maintain a military, at least to some extent, even if that military is kind of a joke. And even if it is kind of a joke, militaries are very expensive things, costing anywhere from 2 to 8% of a country's GDP during peacetime. Right now, Ukraine is spending 34 to 40% of its GDP just trying to stop Russia from overrunning the rest of Eastern Europe. So needless to say, militaries simply are not cheap. And a good part of the reason why is due to the fact that militaries are made up of very expensive things individually, like tanks and fighter jets and stealth bombers. And for a certain rarefied club of countries that just insists upon having the ability to project power overseas, there's those really big ticket items called aircraft carriers. Now, militaries have been messing around with the idea of launching and landing planes on boats almost ever since there's been airplanes. I mean, those two kids from Ohio got their contraption off the ground on the beaches of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina in 1903. By 1910, which is just 7 years later, the first experiments were taking place with launching and recovering airplanes from boats. And just 7 years after that, the Royal Navy would commission its first two aircraft carriers. Now, just after World War II, which would be late 1945, the world's oceans were home to more than 120 aircraft carriers total, with the United States operating about 110 of them itself. The advent of the jet age, however, turned to be a real game changer for aircraft carriers. In World War II, an F-4U Corsair needed to hit a relative airspeed of 85 to 90 miles an hour to take off, and this required the carrier to just steam full ahead flank into a headwind to help the plane reach that speed. Now, that same 85 to 90 miles an hour is the plane's stall speed, so it's about the speed the plane would be landing back on the deck at. So aircraft carriers had to be built to withstand that kind of impact and abuse over and over. Today, a combat-laden FA-18 Super Hornet needs to hit 170 to 190 miles an hour in order to take off. And coming back home, it's going to need to land at about 150 to 170, because right around 150 is the Hornet's stall speed. So we are now talking about much, much heavier airplanes going much faster, now you need to be able to build a boat that can accommodate that. And to do so proved to be prohibitively expensive for most of the world's militaries. From a design and engineering standpoint, just launching and recovering jet planes versus propeller planes is just a nightmare. And solving for that nightmare costs a lot of money. So much money that post-World War II saw a tenfold drop in the number of carriers floating around on the world's oceans. And just as before, though, the USA operates the most of them, with a legally mandated minimum of 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers available at all times. Now, the rest of the world operates a total of just 39 aircraft carriers total, and not even one of them comes within 85% of the size of the Nimitz-class carrier that the U.S. is currently retiring or slowly phasing out in favor of the newer Gerald R. Ford class. Now, again, the point being that aircraft carriers are expensive. I mean, really expensive. So expensive that you have to have a real big boy economy so that you can fleece the peasants for a lot of money if you're going to properly operate a fleet of aircraft carriers. Now, if, say, your government is just really you and your Gopnik buddies doing a bunch of gangster stuff, your economy will not support a proper nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. And if you try to build one anyway, you'll just end up building a heavy aircraft-carrying missile cruiser, and instead of running it on a nuclear reactor like a big boy country would, you're going to run it on some sort of boiler thing that runs on mazout, which is basically what's left after a refinery has made every other thing that's useful imaginable out of crude oil. So arguably, really, then, the only thing more stupid than insisting on spending trillions of your taxpayers' dollars maintaining a fleet of massive aircraft carriers so that your government can just flex on the rest of this wet rock and impose its corporation's will on the rest of the world would be to waste tons of money doing it half-assed and failing spectacularly like Russia did. Last I heard, they were going to finally put that Admiral Gnatsoff out of its misery and scrap it. And I get it. It is tough to build aircraft carriers in the jet age. I mean, the Brits spent the entire Cold War working around the problem by developing a jet that could just curtsy and thus land vertically and take off from a short ski jump ramp on their adorable little pocket aircraft carriers. So clearly it takes a huge team of rather clever people to design a massive ship that can sail the world's oceans powered by a nuclear generator and launch and recover heavy combat-laden state-of-the-art aircraft over and over for decades on end. To bring the Gerald R. Ford class of carriers from a series of specs issued by the Navy to an actual functional warship sailing the world's oceans took a huge team of specialized experts. We're talking planners, designers, engineers, and seriously big-brained people working in collaboration for over a decade to make that happen. Now, each Ford class carrier is made from more than 3 million individual components, each of which were mapped full scale into a 3D digital database so that the various teams working on different aspects of the project could all keep up with each other in real time. There's no aspect of the Ford that exists by accident, okay? Every bit of it is fit for purpose. It is as long, as wide, and as tall as it needs to be to accomplish the job it was designed to do. It is the most complicated and expensive warship ever built. It costs $13 billion, and that's partly due to the fact that 23 new technological systems that didn't exist before went into its development and construction. War is doubtlessly the most stupid and wasteful of all human activities, yet kind of paradoxically, the tools humans have used throughout history to wage war tend to be the most advanced, specialized, and complex things that exist at that time. I mean, I like to fart around in my workshop with my forge and anvil, right? And I mostly make dumb shit like this, kind of, letter openers out of old railroad spikes, right? But just doing that has given me a bit of an appreciation for the amount of skill that it must have gone into making actual proper blades back, in the medieval times when such weapons were what was state of the art. So that's kind of why you will never see me on Forged in Fire, because I know, what my limitations are. I know how to stay in my lane, which brings me at last to someone who isn't smart enough to stay in his lane, and I am, of course, talking about the 47th President of the United States, one Donald John Trump. Yes, turns out that in mid-August, Trump ordered the Navy to redesign some of the next upcoming series of the Ford class of carriers around the old-fashioned steam-powered catapults instead of using the newer, better electromagnetic ones that are already installed on the Gerald R. Ford and were what that entire class of carrier were designed around. Because, that's how you do it. You design a whole bunch of ships kind of the same way because that's cheaper than building a whole bunch of slightly unique ships, right? I mean, that's just common sense. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but even I can tell you that much, right? So the cost of this redesign to the upcoming members of the Ford class is expected to reach into the billions of dollars and to delay completion of those affected ships for many years. Part of the reason being that steam catapults for launching fighter jets off of the decks of supercarriers are kind of a specialized bit of equipment. Even when steam catapults were state-of-the-art and what were being installed on new builds, you couldn't just open a Granger's catalog and order bits for one. They're such a niche item that the Navy built them themselves for the Nimitz class, the last class of carrier to use them. And the last one they built was built for the George H.W. Bush, which set sail in 2009. So, it's been a little while since the Navy's even built a steam-powered catapult. And thinking that they were done with doing so nearly 20 years ago now, they got rid of the tooling. They don't even have the ability to manufacture one. So before they can even comply with the boss's order to go back to an older, crappier system, they're going to first have to reinvent the capability to do so, which is ludicrous. And this is all because a woefully uninformed moron thinks he knows better than the army of actual engineers responsible for creating the Ford class in the first place. I mean, the combination of hubris, of idiocy, and applied Dunning-Kruger effect on display here is just astonishing, even for Trump, who banged out a porn star 5 months after his brothel bride gave birth to her anchor baby. Okay? I mean, this guy's biography is a masterclass in behavior. And even still, this is remarkable. Hence why I'm remarking upon it.
But wait, there's more!
Because telling the Navy to go back to an older system it has no means to even manufacture anymore, just because you think it works better, isn't stupid enough. Trump wasn't done with his design changes to future Ford-class carriers. Oh, no. See, he has ordered the Navy to look into the feasibility of moving the carrier's castle or island, that tall bit that houses the bridge or command center, other important parts of the ship, forward from its current location, which is kind of toward the back third of the ship, more toward the middle of the ship. Now, on the Gerald R. Ford class, the engineers applied lessons learned from the Navy's many decades of operating aircraft carriers, including the Nimitz-class carrier, which had its castle situated more towards the middle, just like older aircraft carriers did. Because it had to go somewhere, and apparently designers at the time just thought, well, nobody's built aircraft carriers before, so we'll just put it in the middle. Why not, right? Well, it turns out that moving the castle about 140 feet further back reduced pilot turbulence on landing and increased sortie generation by improving traffic flow on the flight deck. So they moved it back 140 feet because that's what the data told them to do, and smart people were involved in designing the ship, so that's how it was built. And that's all well and good, but it turns out that Trump likes the look of those older World War II era ships better. The ones with their islands more in the middle. So to be clear, the President of the United States has ordered the Navy to spend billions of dollars going back to an old system that's going to have to recreate the ability to even manufacture, and look into the possibility of completely redesigning the entire Ford class around his idea of, against all evidence to the contrary, just moving the castle back to the middle of the boat because he thinks it looks cooler that way. Because it looks cooler. I mean, what do you even say to that? What the fuck? I'm 50 fucking years old, okay? I've been paying close attention to this wet rock and what happens upon it for more than half of my life at this point, since getting my first newspaper job in my early 20s. Alright? I watched the Clarence Thomas confirmation hearing as a kid. I watched the Iran-Contra hearings as an even littler kid. I watched Clinton get impeached for getting a Lewinsky during a government shutdown, only they didn't call it a Lewinsky at that time yet, because it was, that's where it came from. But anyway, I watched the FBI shoot a mother while she was holding her own child because her husband had previously been entrapped into selling a shotgun that was arbitrarily a little bit too short to a government goon. I've seen the government of this country do an astonishing number of incredibly, unforgivably stupid fucking things. But hey, fuck the price tag. I want the aircraft carriers to look cooler. I don't know. That's in the running for the dumbest fucking thing yet. And by cooler, we're just going for older. That's what we're shooting for. It's not even mid-century modern. Trump's just going for straight up mid-century with this. That's what he thinks is cool looking. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, if all we're doing is going for cool looking, then why not just go balls out? I mean, y'all know. I mean, I'm a dork that loves that whole heavy metal look. I mean, let's just make it black with spikes and big skulls on it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, maybe that one's not for everyone, but I mean, if we're just going for looks, then why not go fucking crazy and make it some giant anime robot looking thing? Now there we go, that would be so cool! We'll have weebs signing up for the Navy in fucking droves now! Or if Trump's insisting on steam catapults, because I guess he maybe likes that big puff of white steam that comes out every time a plane gets launched. I mean, let's just make the whole carrier run on steam, and not that nuclear generated newfangled steam. Let's go back to coal burners. Let's make a whole full-blown steampunk aircraft carrier. Hell yeah, that's it. Yep, let's get some polished dark wood in there, some brass, some Victorian style uniforms for the crew. We can even get some child laborers to shovel coal way below decks into the furnace. I mean, let's go full on old school, dude. Or, hang on, hear me out. Why doesn't someone, I mean anyone, just point out the fact that letting an 80-year-old convicted rapist fraudster with the 50-year-old plus bachelor's degree in economics tell the U.S. Navy how to design an aircraft carrier is incredibly and unforgivably fucking stupid. Could maybe just somebody point that out to the man? Could somebody? I mean, all right, somebody other than Mark Kelly, because kind of fuck him anyway. But I guess the good news for us tax slaves is that all this military acquisition shit tends to happen at a glacial pace, and things as big as aircraft carriers even more so. So hopefully whoever the fuck replaces Trump will be just slightly less fucking stupid and will be just smart enough to cancel all these stupid and ill-advised changes to the Ford class. Or better yet, I mean, this would be even better, just cancel the entire Ford class program and refund all of us tax slaves all of our money, because I'm personally not that interested in the government having the ability to just flex all over the rest of the planet. I mean, I'm not even really that happy with them being able to flex on me with their monopoly on violence and their private prisons with quotas built into the contracts. I mean, I already got to pay for all that shit, okay? I wouldn't wish it on other folks elsewhere that I haven't met who have done me no wrong. So, but of course that won't happen. The government will build its 11 or how many ever Ford class carriers it's going to build. And some might just be kind of funny looking and saddled with old technology. But they'll get built, and we'll pay for them. And the government will use them to get itself into more stupid, dumb wars, probably again because Israel told them to. And so the cycle of stupid and endless stupidity will carry on for at least what's left of my life and probably beyond. So, damn. Well, thanks for sticking it out this long anyway, and please subscribe, like, share, comment. Otherwise, do something to let YouTube know someone's watching this shit. And I'll see you next time. And in the meantime, please don't be stupid.